Hi, I'm Sarah Williams from Leading Culture, and I'm here with Chris on the Culture Matters podcast.
Leading culture, Sarah Williams. If you're listening, if you're as a listener, if you're listening close enough, there is an accent of some sort. Everybody has an accent. Where's you're from? So, yeah, in other words, tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you are right now, where do you come from, if that's any importance, and give us a bit of a frame of cultural reference, please.
Yeah, absolutely. So, hi everybody, I'm Sarah Williams, or should I say kia ora whānau,
Oh my
ko
God.
Sarah Williams aho. I come from the little land, we call it Aotearoa, the land of the long white cloud, which is New Zealand, down the bottom of the planet.
Uh-huh.
And I am born and bred in New Zealand. I have had the great fortune of spending a lot of time working in and around and growing up immersed in the traditional or indigenous culture of New Zealand as well, which is the Maori people. For those of you who are overseas,
Hmm.
here in New Zealand, we would call that Te Ao Māori, which means Maori worldview. So we look at the world through a lens of Maori culture, if you like. So that's been my upbringing. I've had the great fortune to bring that into my work as well throughout my career. Many people ask me though, we have a saying here in Aotearoa, which is, um, where is your tūranga waiwai? Tūranga waiwai is the word for um, your your sacred place, um, your home, where you really feel at home.
Uh-huh.
And when I get asked that question, Chris, you'll probably be surprised to hear, but my tūranga waiwai is Hawaii. And
Okay.
I've I've had the great fortune to spend quite a bit of time there, both for work and pleasure. And there's such an affinity to the land there. Now, it's probably no surprise because Hawaii for Maori and our traditional culture is actually the place where we come from. So our walkers, our canoes set sail from the land of Hawaii, and that was how all the Polynesian islands were populated.
Mhm.
Lots of walkers set sail. The ones that came to New Zealand, there was 8 of them that came to New Zealand, and that's how New Zealand was populated.
Mhm.
So that's our kind of traditional story. That was a long story. Sorry.
No, that's
I get
fine. That's it.
excited about this.
No, because it prompts a lot of questions. It prompts a lot of questions, actually. Maybe we should do two interviews. So you speak the local language. It's a local, it's not even a dialect, it's a language, right?
It's correct. Yeah, yeah. Te reo Māori, that means the language of Māori.
Uh-huh.
So I'm a student in Te reo Māori. I am not like I can't hold my own on a marae in a conversation with kaumātua or people who are very fluent in Māori.
Okay.
However, I can write in the language and I can speak enough to be dangerous, I suppose.
Do they use the same script, the Latin script, as in ABC, or is there a different
Um,
script?
No, um so the Māori language is limited in its dialect in that, and that's not too dissimilar from many other languages, I suppose. There's a lot of words in the Māori language that have multiple meanings.
Hmm.
So very contextual as far as how you use the words. And there's a lot of like not all A through Z is used as far as letters.
Hmm.
And if you were to, the thing that I found really interesting working between New Zealand and Hawaii, the New Zealand here in New Zealand, a lot of our words in Maori would start with a T, quite often, or a K. Well, actually, it's the T more. So a lot of the words that would be a T in New Zealand. So for example, here in New Zealand, we would say tane, that's the man for the word for male.
Hmm.
In Hawaii, it's kane with a K. So there's you can see how the language has been
Yeah.
derived from Hawaiian, language as well. So it's very cool.
Is it when I say, okay, you're a Kiwi and the other one are Aussies, is that an offense?
Correct.
How close or how different are you?
I suppose you can liken it to the calling a Canadian an American, but
They will
there's a
not like
difference,
that. They
right?
will not like that.
No, no, they don't. Same with New Zealand. So we don't particularly like being called Aussies, and Aussies wouldn't like being called Kiwis. However, we're a little bit lighter hearted about it. Like we think it's a joke, like and there's this really nice camaraderie between Aussies and Kiwis. We're
There
always
is.
ribbing one
Okay.
another. Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. With your because you threw up a lot of information, and I've got a lot of questions with that. So so I wrote a question down, which is really silly. How did you end up in New Zealand? Which is silly because you were born there. But
Yeah. That's how I ended up there. Yep.
the reason the reason I asked this question is I apparently have some family from my mom's side in New Zealand. I don't think I've ever met them, or maybe I have in a lot in a far gone past. I still have a living uncle there. I think he must be about 200 years old or something like that. Most of the family that I know somewhat about them. They all moved to Australia. Why not you? Because
Yes.
I mean that's or either Australia or I mean you're calling me in Paris. I've got a few colleagues here. They're from Australia. Why did you stay there? What's your drive there?
Yeah. And it's funny that you should say
We're having a slight connection issue here.
particular,
If you can hear me, Sarah, if you can hear
um,
me, I'm
funny
interrupting
little
you.
fact, when am I back?
Oh, yeah, you're back. You're back again. Yeah, just go on.
Okay. 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 So, funny you should ask about Australia because when I do a lot of work in Australia, I'm there on almost a weekly basis. And when I arrive in Australia, Uber sends me a message to say welcome home. So Uber thinks I live in Australia. Um,
That's funny.
but in answer to your question, why not Australia? New Zealand is an amazing country. I think one of the qualities, and it's not too dissimilar from Australia in this respect, one of the qualities I love about New Zealand is we have a little bit of we have had a little bit of an open door policy. So New
Mhm.
Zealand's incredibly multicultural. You imagine and we have tension around our Indigenous culture.
Mhm.
There's so much we could talk about there, but we have our Indigenous culture, but on top of that, we have a lot of other cultures that have moved to New Zealand. So the work and workplace culture is so rich and so interesting because, for example, I've worked with an organization where they had 26 different cultures or nationalities under one roof in one space.
Mhm.
And, that brought up some real challenges of that understanding of the different
Mhm.
cultures. Um, so New Zealand's a beautiful place. There's not too many people here. When I go to Australia, there's a lot of people. I was in Paris late last year.
There are a lot of people there.
There's a ton of people there, right? So it's really nice that, yeah, exactly. So it's really nice for me to have, this quiet space that I retreat to. And New Zealand has everything as far as lifestyle goes. So, yeah.
That's what the Lord
But
of the Rings
the
thought
other
as well.
question,
Yeah.
what's that?
That's the director of the Lord of the Rings also thought. New Zealand is really a pretty place.
Yeah, it really is. Like where I live, I'm 10 minutes from four different beautiful white sand beaches.
Hmm.
So, you know, in between meetings, in the afternoons, that sort of thing, if I'm working from home, I can just go and walk the beach. So there's not too many places that you can say that about. So
True.
yeah. But one of the other questions that might bring up as well,
Yeah.
here in New Zealand, we talk a lot about whakapapa. And whakapapa is the is not a swear word, by the way. It's WH, just so then you're clear.
Nope. Good.
That's the spelling of it. The whakapapa is the your genealogy, right? It's your
Mhm.
story that you come with. So when we meet people, we're really interested in understanding their whakapapa, because in doing that, we can place ourselves in their story, or we can find those similarities in their story, right?
Mhm.
Just as you and I are doing today.
Sure.
And so my whakapapa, actually, you can probably tell by the red hair and stuff, but my whakapapa actually comes from Scotland and Ireland. So
Hmm.
that's where my ancestors were. Um, and they came down in the 1800s, mid 1800s,
Hmm.
via boat.
Hmm.
First of all to Australia, and then ended up coming to New Zealand, and that's where my family has resided. So Irish and Scottish blood in me, and then born and bred in New Zealand.
Okay. Diluted from the Irish and Scottish, but now a full-bred New Zealander, which is still a nice link
Correct.
because it's actually a Dutch name, which of course you know. New Zealand, as in the New Zealand, as the province that we have in the south of the country.
Okay, I did not know that.
Oh, you did not? Okay, look at the map. The Netherlands on the west coast of the Netherlands, the southernmost province of the Netherlands. It's a province called New Zealand, the Dutch pronunciation. That's where you got your name from.
Ah,
Ha!
that's
How about
interesting.
that? Okay, let's talk about your work because I like to talk about this. I got a few questions written down here. I'm going to read them out to you. In today's times, this comes from your LinkedIn profile. In today's times, it's no longer enough to allow culture by default. In today's times, it's no longer enough to allow culture by default. What do you mean with this in your professional hat?
Yeah. Um, Sadly, I see it all too often in organizations where they bring a group of people together and culture happens. I mean, culture will happen regardless. Culture is happening right now between the two of us across the airwaves, right? We're creating a culture between the two of us.
Okay.
And so culture happens regardless. And what I see in organizations is that they don't pay enough attention to the culture. And then, I often say, I'm like the ambulance at the bottom of a cliff a lot of the time, because it's when the culture breaks and they go, oh, something's wrong with our culture, or, oh, it's toxic here, or whatever. And then
Yeah.
they're like, who can we call? That sort of thing. So I'm really trying to send a message to leaders in business to say to them, don't let it be by default. Let it be by design. Like design the culture that you want, and you'll reap the benefits if you do that.
Okay, this is a good point. That's a good point in any case. It's the I do two things. I do national culture and organizational culture. Excuse me. It's late
Yep.
here. Um, you tend to
Mhm.
focus more on organizational culture, if I'm correct, right? Um,
Yes.
my experience is in business, it's twofold. It's a uh, people do not want to drop their pants. Excuse the French, excuse the expression. If you want to know what's going on in the organization, most management teams don't really know what's going on in the organization. And if you question the people around the organization and or in the organization or around the management team, they will tell you, but that's really confronting for a management team. So, and then it's like, yeah, no, let's wait. No, no, we're gonna back off a little bit here, and because this is too confronting, and this is my experience. That's one point I'd like to address. I'd like to get your opinion on. The other point is don't you think that national culture is more dominating than organizational culture in a multicultural, multinational organization? I'm going to give you an example for this. And the example I use, with all respect to all cultures and all religions, the Roman Catholic Church is different in Rome than it is in Salt Lake City, than it is in Tokyo, than it is in Auckland or Christchurch. Organizational culture generally tends to go under national culture. So there are 2 points here I'd like to get your opinion on, please.
Yes. Yes. Um,
Are you okay with this?
okay. Yeah, absolutely. I'm just
Okay,
I'm
good.
just thinking of my responses. Remind me the first question, so then I can make sure I'm
The
very
first
focused
question
on the
is
second
that the
question. So what was
exposure
the
to
first one?
management, my first question, the exposure to management of what the people
Oh
underneath
yes,
the management
confronting.
find is
I have it.
is too confronting for management to go ahead with creating an organizational culture.
Yes. So speaking to that first, in my work, one of the things that I do, and I agree with you entirely, Chris, it is confronting and it's a brave organization that does it. And that's why I say I'm the ambulance at the bottom of the cliff. Usually they've waited till they're in such a world of pain and they
Mhm.
realize that it's the culture that's driving that, that now they're like, just help us, which that is not my favorite thing to do because I would rather that they had come earlier so then we could do something about it before they got into this world of pain. However, like I do culture audits, culture assessments, whatever it is. Me and my team go in and really find out what is going on. We're looking for, the myths and legends that are out there, the influences over the culture. I'm particularly interested in the language that has been used as well, because I think that
Corporate
has
language you're talking
some
about here, right?
corporate language, cultural language, I would
Okay.
call it. Yeah.
Okay, okay.
Um, and so, and then we put together a report of our findings. And you're right, totally confronting and hard to take. So I don't ever, I'm not one of those consultants that says, here we are, we're going to have a meeting, and I'm going to shoot, and we're going to discuss the findings. Here's the report for you to read, a week beforehand.
Mhm.
I don't do that because I've been bitten too many times, because like you say, it's so confronting, and
Yeah.
without the context of me and my team delivering it, it can put them into just an absolute spiral. So we don't do that. I explain to them that's the reason why, and then we go through with them. Here's what we're finding. But I guess the big thing is all is not lost. Like I don't think there's been a situation yet that my team and I haven't been able to say, hey, hand on heart, we've seen this and worse before, and we know that we can recover you from this situation, right? So
Mhm.
there's that piece of hope that still sits there. And as I always say to people, isn't it better to know what you're dealing with so then you can make some really key decisions around where you want to go with this culture, to know what you're dealing with, have it be apparent, and then create from there, because now you're actually really addressing it. And I think 9 times out of 10, most of the leaders in business are surprised at how fast it can be turned around.
Mm.
Like there's usually just a couple of really bad challenges that are causing the toxicity, if we want to talk about it in those
Yeah.
terms, that can often be recovered or started to be
Cured
worked
or
on
changed or yeah.
rapidly.
It,
Yeah,
the,
yeah,
the the thing that
exactly.
comes to mind, sorry to interrupt. No, go ahead, please.
No, no, you carry on.
Oh, well, the thing that comes to mind here when you say, don't you want to know what's going on, is for me, raises the question, if a doctor tells me you got 3 years to live, 1 year to live, 500 years to live, do I want to know that? Do I really want to
Mm,
know what's going on? I'm still making my money. I'm management here, right? I'm still
yeah.
making my money. That's for me, that's the friction point in terms of we see, as in you and I, we can see, okay, this is going on in an organization. Guys, management, look at this. This is important. You can change it for them. You can change it for yourself. You can change it for, well, the organization as a whole. How do you make how do you make management, how do you turn management around as in face this? Look, smoking is bad for
Yes.
you. Stop it. Something like that.
Yeah. Yeah, and like I say, I think it's not until the pain of not changing is so great that they're forced to change, right?
Okay.
So so for me, like let's say we, and you've probably had this situation as well. Let's say we have a people and culture manager or an HR manager or somebody coming to us saying, "Hey, I know we've got some challenges in our culture, but the leadership team doesn't want to look at it. The executive team doesn't want to look at it. The board isn't interested in looking at it. Nobody wants to look at it.
Yep.
How can you help us?" And that's when I start to turn to metrics. So, like in my previous career, I actually
Numbers.
started my career. I started my career as an accountant, so I
Hmm.
can quantify for them what this is costing them. And the minute you start talking dollars, you've usually got a few
Yeah,
eyebrows raised,
yeah,
and
true.
they're like,
That's a good point.
"Oh, okay, I can see where this could be heading." And you can layer that on because culture has influence over just so many areas that have financial implications, right?
Yeah.
So it can actually be quite a compelling story by the time you do a little bit of work on what the cost of this culture
Either
currently is
doing or not
actually.
doing. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly.
Yeah.
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 And
And
then to your second question about the national culture
yeah,
versus the
I
sort
mean,
of.
I did the example of the Catholic Church. Talk about Airbus, talk about General Motors or something,
Yeah, yeah,
McDonald's, whatever.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So I think again, entirely right. There's the multinational culture, the overarching culture that I call that kind of the corporate culture, right? The
Mhm.
corporate culture that happens that is sent out from the top down, if you like,
Yeah.
is a good way of describing it, wherever the top may be. But there's the localized culture as well. And, you can see, let's take, I mean, McDonald's is a great example. McDonald's has their corporate culture where you get all the messaging around here's our values, here's how we operate, this is what's important to us as a business,
Yeah.
which has an influence over the culture. But at a localized level, at a localized restaurant, they can decide whether they're going to opt into that or not. And on top of that, they've got the complexity of a group of people working together that create their own culture because of that, right?
And
So
the loss of the land, the loss of the country.
yeah, yeah, yeah. So the laws of the land, here in New Zealand, the laws of the land, and I'll be controversial probably for saying this, the laws of the land would probably be secondary because let's take a McDonald's restaurant. In a McDonald's restaurant, I don't know, what are the staff that they have on site at any one time now? They might have 10 or 12 people in a McDonald's restaurant now. They've
Mhm.
really leaned it down. Um, those 10 or 12 people here in New Zealand, I would say every single one of them would be from a different nationality or culture.
Mm,
Every single one.
mm,
So you might have somebody from um let's say an Asian country, China, Korea, maybe even Thailand or the Philippines. You'd have definitely somebody representing the Indian regions.
mhm.
You would potentially have somebody from well, possibly a couple of Europeans. They might be working tourists, like those sorts of things.
Yeah.
You'd have um, you'd have probably people from a couple of the Pacific Islands, different Pacific Islands, and
Mhm.
interestingly enough, they don't all get along. It's not all happy families. So yeah, you'd have just a variety of people under this one roof. So all of these are having an influence on the culture that exists in that one restaurant. Um, did that answer your question?
Yeah, but and possibly maybe your situation is somewhat different because you have such what you just mentioned is such a mix of cultures, of national cultures, that potentially only the organizational culture can unite them in towards or in one direction. Um, what I was alluding to is more of a you have a say a group of sorry Aussies or Kiwis or Parisians or Dutchies or cheeseheads, um,
Yep.
that's the majority, but the head office is in the US or the head office is in Japan. Which one dominates? According to my theory and my experience, is that the national culture dominates.
So do you find, because I've had this situation, here in New Zealand we have quite a few organizations that are their head office comes out of, say, Europe or the US,
Yeah,
like larger countries, right?
sure. Yeah.
We have at a localized level are sometimes quite obvious and evident, and this could be the Kiwi culture kind of coming through, where they're like, I know this is what head office says, but we'll just ignore that
Exactly.
and we'll carry on in our way.
Well,
Um,
this, yeah,
and and I think that the location of New Zealand allows us to get away with that in some cases. Like it's not very often that you have the president of the organization flying down to New Zealand just to pump fists and
uh-huh.
like yeah. So that doesn't happen. They can get away with it for quite some time. And on top of that, I think as a general rule, New Zealand the Kiwi culture is, like we are quite productive. So we can go under the radar quite easily. Like usually the New Zealand units or the New Zealand branches will be, punching above their weight
Hmm.
and performing pretty well. So they don't get looked at too
All
often,
right.
They
Yeah.
don't have those big visits.
Well,
Yeah.
this is more or less what I meant, indeed, in terms of national culture dominating organizational culture. When you talk about these international organizations like McDonald's or General Electric or whatever, General Motors, some I don't know, off the cuff like that. Um, so and you do it because you can stay under the radar because you're geographically far away. The Dutchies can do it because who do you think you are? You're going to tell me what to do. You are going to tell me what. So there are different cultural aspects in terms, and the French will say, "Oh God, oh, yeah, merci, docteur, God, whatever language they use." I don't speak the language, even though I'm in Paris. So there. Hence, I think you would agree with me that indeed the local, national culture dominates organizational culture.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. Definitely. Whatever that looks like. And,
Sarah,
like I think even just let's say let's say I'm working with an organization that is across even just New Zealand and Australia. Every single site that I visit in that organization will have a different culture.
yeah.
There's an overarching culture that the organization as a whole is trying to influence, but how that's taken, how that's adopted is different on
Hmm.
every single site. Yeah.
Yeah, it's true. It's like sand or water. You can't hold it in your hand because it sips right through. But when you freeze it, it's tough as a rock. And that's what
Yeah.
organizational culture is. You can't touch it, but boy, it's there.
Yeah. Yeah. I often
Sarah,
I often liken it to oxygen,
yeah,
like
I don't,
it's
same.
there.
It's there. It is there. You can't do without it either. Yeah. I'm looking at the time and the clock as well. I'd like to keep my interviews around 30 minutes, and we
Yeah.
are at that 30-minute mark. I'm going to ask you two more questions. One is, can you give us 3 tips to become more culturally competent, please?
Yes, absolutely. I'd love to. Um, okay, so culturally competent, I think that resides on language. It resides on understanding traditions, and I think it resides around perspective. So, what do I mean by that? I
Yeah.
think if you're going to be culturally competent, you need to know the language of the culture. Now, that could be a national culture, that could be an organizational culture. Be mindful and listening to the language of that culture
Mhm.
and the meaning that is placed on it. The second thing, as far as culture, and it's something that we do naturally as human beings, when we enter into a place, we look and we go, oh, how do people operate around here?
Yeah.
Right. So they're looking for the traditions that exist within the culture. So if you're wanting to be more culturally competent, be aware of the traditions that are in that culture. And even if you're wanting to be more culturally competent entering a culture, ask people, what are the traditions around here? How is it that people behave? They might look at you strangely, but they'll usually have an answer for you.
Hmm.
And then the third thing is around perspective. And I think the tip here around perspective is really understanding the other person's perspective when you are having any kind of conversation in any culture. If you can really, as the saying goes, stand in somebody else's shoes and understand where they're coming from, likely your competency around culture is going to raise a huge amount more. Because I think understanding I talked earlier about whakapapa and our stories, where we come from. I think that's really how we get the
Hmm.
true depth of understanding of humans and therefore the culture that exists between us as we
Yeah.
interact.
Yeah. Good points. Thank you so much for this. Last question is, if people want to get in touch with you, how can they do that?
Oh yeah, absolutely. So our easiest way is to get in touch with us is the Leading Culture website. So that's leadingculture.co.nz. That is the
Culture,
easiest
okay.
way to get in
Without a
touch with
hyphen, right?
us. No hyphen. Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Look, just Leading Culture. Those two words stuck
Okay.
together. Um, and yeah, I'd love to, if anyone's interested, we have a really cool scorecard. If you're kind of thinking, I'd love to just work out where my culture's at, it's 5 questions. If you just add /scorecard to that website address that I gave you, leadingculture.co.nz /scorecard, you can just download that and assess
School
your own culture.
cart, as in CART.
Scorecard.
Uh-huh.
C Scorecards.
Scorecard.
SCORE
Okay.
CARD. Sorry, that's my accent, isn't it?
No, we'll get there. We'll get there. Scorecard. I got that. Okay.
Yeah,
Okay, perfect.
yeah.
All right. Well, thank you so much. What time is it now at yours?
It is 20 past 8 in the morning now.
20 past 8. Well, let me give you my time here. It is 10:23. Um,
Crazy.
my time here in Paris in the evening, at night, if you want. All right.
Yes,
Okay.
definitely.
Well, thank you so much, and I'm pretty sure we'll bump into to each other in the future.
I look forward to that, Chris.
Thank
Thanks
you.
so much for having me.